Welcome back to the Vote Trade YouTube channel, and today we are doing a Singapore preview for the upcoming Grand Prix this weekend. First of all, before I get into the video, please like and subscribe to this channel with the bell notifications on for more videos like this. So now, of course, we're probably around about 3/4 of the way into the season now, and we go to Singapore, one of the most physically demanding tracks on the calendar, with its high temperatures, which can be really difficult for the drivers. Looking at the weather radar, it's going to be around about 28 degrees in Singapore, and of course the track temperature is going to be way higher than 28 degrees. So it's going to be a really hot one, and you can understand how it can be really difficult for the drivers. The drivers can lose up to 3 kg of weight during this Grand Prix with how much water they do lose during the race. So it's really important for the drivers to stay hydrated as much as possible. And kind of continuing with the weather, it should be a clean, dry race weekend. There's little bits of rain maybe before the sessions. On the Friday there's one in the morning, about 30% chance in the morning, around about 10 to 11 o'clock, but that shouldn't really affect any of the sessions. And on Saturday and Sunday there should be some maybe in the evening, around about 30% as well. Not really going to really affect the track conditions when it comes lights out. Now, of course, we go to Singapore this year with completely different changes to the circuit. Of course, the final sector has been amended a bit to aid better racing around here. So instead of 23 corners this year, it will now be 19 corners instead. So where they kind of go underneath that bridge and that little tunnel bit, that is basically being taken away, and it's just more flatter going into that section. If I can get a picture on the screen, I'll put a picture of the track map on the screen. And that will probably help the racing around here with there being more of a straight, more opportunities to overtake, so which can kind of change the way of how the weekend can go for some teams, able to obviously be in the straight line for longer. For teams like Williams, that may benefit them a little bit more than they would have last year. Now, of course, the first Grand Prix was hosted in 2008, and obviously we had that really controversial moment with Crashgate that happened there in the first year, and also Felipe Massa's fuel kind of going off in the pit lane as well, which was a kind of a memorable moment there. And of course, we've had 5 victories from Sebastian Vettel at Singapore as well. We had the moment when Lewis retired in 2012, and that kind of started the move for Lewis to move away from McLaren and make his move to Mercedes. And speaking of Lewis as well, that 2018 pole lap for Lewis Hamilton, when the car wasn't looking that great that weekend and he was able to pull out a magic of a lap. And of course, we can't forget in 2017 that lap hunt incident between Vettel, Raikkonen and Verstappen, which is, when it was raining at the start, Kimi got a really good start. Vettel kind of tries to come off Verstappen, and then Verstappen then hits into Raikkonen, and that kind of turns into that whole palaver. Alonso kind of gets taken out in that little bit of action at the start as well. And that was, of course, Carlos Sainz's last race for Toro Rosso then as well, and he grabbed some really nice points. Julian Palmer, that was his last race as well, and he grabbed some good points there as well. I believe he got 7th place there as well. So it's quite an interesting track, and we've obviously seen quite a lot of incidents happen there before and some great moments. So hopefully this year the same can happen again. And of course, we can look back to last year where the race started on the intermediate tyres. Leclerc started on pole with Perez in 2nd place, and of course Perez got the jump on Leclerc at the start of the race. And Max slightly out of position in P8, and he had to work his way through the field. We had Guan Yu Zhou and the Latifi crash as well, when Latifi basically just swerved into Zhou and took him out of the race, which caused the safety car as well. There's a load of little different incidents happening in that race. Remember George Russell and Kevin Magnussen in that race as well. Hamilton went into the barriers at turn 7. Also, Verstappen went deep into turn 7 as well. And of course, the race didn't go to the full 61 laps either. It had to have that countdown, because otherwise the race would have went on for too long. So overall, last year's race was actually I would say a pretty decent one. It was very weird. I guess it was kind of boring in some parts of the race, but there were some like little key moments, some good moments in that race that are quite memorable. And of course, Perez came home that day as well and picked up another race victory. Now, this year's Grand Prix is obviously the circuit layout has changed, and there now will be 62 laps around Singapore. And it's a 4.94 kilometers track rather than the roughly around about 5 kilometers last year. And the race is around about 306 kilometers. And don't forget, it's a high downforce circuit with a lot of 90 degrees corners, so expect a lot of teams to have put a load of high downforce on that car. And we will have the C5, C4 and C3 compound of tyres available for this weekend. Of course, Singapore is quite a low deck circuit, so we can have these higher compound of tyres here. So for some teams with the kind of the lower deck, it could benefit some teams as well. And the average pit loss time around here is around about 21 seconds as well. And Kevin Magnussen holds the race lap record around here with 1.41, and Lewis Hamilton holds the quality lap record around here with 136. But of course, those records are now scrapped because of the new circuit layout. So whoever gets pole here, whoever gets the fastest lap in the Grand Prix will hold that new record at Singapore in this new layout. So our past pole sitters here around in Singapore. 2008, the pole sitter was Massa. 2009, Lewis Hamilton. 2010, Fernando Alonso. 2011, Sebastian Vettel. 2012 was Lewis Hamilton. 2013, Sebastian Vettel. 2014, Lewis Hamilton. 2015, Sebastian Vettel. 2016, Nico Rosberg. 2017, Sebastian Vettel. 2018, Lewis Hamilton. And 2019 and 2022, it was Charles Leclerc. Looking at the record there in terms of pole positions, Ferrari have genuinely done well going around here, especially in qualifying. Sebastian Vettel has the record of race victories around here with 5 race victories. Lewis getting on the pole positions quite a lot as well. And now I'll go through the race winners in the past here. I'll put them up on screen as well. So in 2008 was Fernando Alonso after that kind of controversy, and now there's a massive lawsuit about that with the 2008 championship by Massa being lost and stuff like that. That's another video for another day. That is very, very complicated. 2009 was Lewis Hamilton. 2010 was Fernando Alonso. You could say that was supposed to be legitimately won the Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel won the race in Singapore between 2011 and 2013. You can see how much dominance he was around Singapore, Sebastian Vettel. 2014 was Lewis Hamilton who won the Grand Prix. 2015 was Sebastian Vettel again. 2016, Nico Rosberg. 2017-2018 was both Lewis Hamilton. Vettel won it in 2019, which was his last ever race victory, which seemed so kind of sad to hear that was his last race victory. I wish he could win even more. And 2022, of course, was Sergio Perez. So generally looking at the trends here, if you are on pole, you're more likely to win the race. So pole position, track position around Singapore, of course, as we know, it's going to be so crucial. But of course, with the new section here as well, how does that play a part as well? Do you necessarily have to be pole because you have another kind of long straight to kind of attack another driver as well? Teams that have, benefit at the high downforce circuits like Aston Martin, for example, and also McLaren as well, how would they kind of benefit from the longer straight as well? Of course, at Monza and at Spa, both McLaren's and Aston Martin did have quite a struggle of a weekend there as well. So how much would that affect? For me, not too much, because there's still a lot of the circuit which is quite 90 degrees, quite high downforce needed. Now let's have a look at some teams that may struggle this weekend more than they did last time out at Monza. And let's have a look at some teams that may benefit from racing here this weekend. So of course, as Williams have already kind of said, they do expect to struggle more down here. Obviously with a higher downforce, they do struggle with that. So expect them to be kind of struggling to get out of Q1 this time. Alpine should be a lot stronger this weekend as well. Of course, they're not really that great in a straight line. And with Singapore being quite a high downforce circuit, it may play into Alpine's hands a little bit more. So don't be surprised if you do see one of the Alpines make it into Q3 this weekend. I'll be shocked if Alpine do have a horrid weekend like they did last time out at Monza. Another team to look out for is Alfa Romeo. Of course, when we went to the last high downforce type circuit, which you could probably say Zandvoort and Hungary, they did go fairly well. Of course, in Hungary, Joe qualifying in P5, Valtteri Bottas also doing quite well as well, of course, until the incident happened at the start. So expect the Alfa Romeos to be pretty good in qualifying. And again, I would not be surprised if one of them do make it through into Q3, and they should be definitely looking at a Q2, both cars into Q2. So maybe expect probably both of the Williams, the AlphaTauris, and maybe one of the Haas cars dropping into Q1. Of course, Red Bull will be the most dominant team here. They will be the most dominant team at every single track, and it's going to be really, really hard to beat them. And I think we should see Mercedes and Aston Martin towards the front again, fighting for that podium. Of course, the Mercedes-powered teams, really apart from Williams, do struggle with straight line speed, and we're seeing while not being too reliant on straight line speed, we should see the Mercedes, McLaren and Aston Martin fighting towards the top. And of course with that, Ferrari may struggle again this weekend. They're not really that great on the tyres, and their car is really strong when we are racing at tracks that are needing straight line speed. Of course Monza, they were really, really quick, but this race coming up, we should expect them to kind of drop back a little bit more. But I do expect McLaren to be quite fast in qualifying, having Piastri and Norris in the round top 5. But of course, I think Mercedes should be better in the race. They're just generally better on their tyres, do Mercedes. So that may play a factor. Maybe, of course, around Singapore as well, tractor's position is so crucial. So could that element play again? We're unsure, obviously, but just look out for the race pace of Mercedes and the qualifying pace for McLaren. So don't be surprised if you do see Lando Norris in the top 3, maybe reaching pole as well, but it's going to be really hard to stop Max Verstappen, isn't it? And also, generally, Sergio Perez does go good around the street circuit, mainly because you need a lot of good rear traction coming out of corners, and Perez is one of the best at that. So do expect Perez to be kind of on top form this weekend. Of course, he's won here before as well last year, so he's going to want to he's going to want to bounce back and do well this weekend. But of course, now it's time for my predictions. I don't see anyone beating Max Verstappen this season so far. I can honestly see Verstappen winning every single race towards the end of the season. So on pole, I'll put Verstappen on pole. I'm going to put Lando Norris in second place, and I'm going to put Sergio Perez in P3. There is a risk that Perez will struggle in qualifying, as he generally has this season, but as it's one of Perez's probably one of his most strongest circuits as well, I do trust the fact that he will make it into the top 3. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do see like a Fernando Alonso sneak into P3 as well. And of course, Lewis and George could be in and around there. But as I've said before, their race pace should be better than their quali pace. So do watch out for them in qualifying. In the race, I've got Max Verstappen winning this Grand Prix. It's hard for me to bet against Max Verstappen winning the Grand Prix. I could kind of play a bit, a bit special, be a bit kind of out there and put Perez to win the race, maybe Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, but I want to be as safe as possible, and I don't see anyone else beating Max Verstappen, just generally speaking. And in P2, I've got Sergio Perez finishing P2. I think he'll have a really strong weekend this time around. I don't know if he'd be that close to Max Verstappen, but I think a sort of P2 could be in the cards. And as I said about Mercedes and their strong race pace, I do see Lewis Hamilton picking up another podium, his 5th podium of the season in P3. And as I said, the reason why for Lewis Hamilton to be on the podium is because I expect that race pace of Mercedes to be better than McLaren's. So it could be some sort of strategy type thing between Norris and Hamilton, which is going to be really, really interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see if George Russell can kind of be in and around Lewis this weekend. Of course, in the last kind of couple of weeks, couple of weekends, they've not really been that close with each other. So hopefully we do see a fight with McLaren's and the Mercedes. But again, I would not count Fernando Alonso out either. I would not be surprised if he does go and grab a podium as well, finishing in P3. And of course, out of the Aston Martin drivers, he's probably the best bet. So you could probably argue and maybe put Alonso in P5 as well. But of course, if Alonso does have a good qualifying and sticks his car in that P3 maybe, then I do see Alonso kind of hanging on as well, because that car does do generally well around the low speed corners. But there we go, there we have it. That is my Singapore Grand Prix preview. Make sure you like, subscribe for more little stuff like this. Who do you think will win the Grand Prix? Who do you think will be on pole? Just give me your general predictions and what you're thinking. Is there anything I've said that you do disagree with? Please do let me know. And if there's any little points that I've missed out, please do let me know as well. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll speak to you later. Thank you.